Hello everybody, and welcome to our portfolio vlog for Monday, February 10th. Greg is out in a client meeting this morning, and so it'll just be Mr. Brad from ourselves, but Greg wanted me to greet everyone and wish you a happy portfolio market week. What we'll be looking at is several things this week, kind of a little recast from last week. We saw some interesting data. Franklin's going to visit with us about that some and some other. And I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about the unemployment rate, maybe a measure you hadn't thought of a little bit. So Franklin, if you want to start, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, just to recap last week, so stocks for the week were mostly up with the exception of small cap stocks. The reason that we watch this is small cap, the smaller companies, if you will, tend to move up before bigger companies, and they also can potentially move down before the bigger companies for a host of reasons, but that is something that we're watching pretty closely. We did see a disappointing manufacturing report. The ISM manufacturing came out. It's a little disappointing, as well as the jobs report was below expectations on growth, but was still up. Good news is the unemployment rate came down. Now, why does this matter? Why do we even track this? Couple of things. Obviously, manufacturing has a big impact on our economy. The other thing is the jobs. Obviously, the more people who make money and who are out working, the better. Now, this is going to sound like a broken record. We talk about this quite a bit. But the polar vortex is still kind of being watched for the impact that it had in December and also in January. Remember, we're in the South here in Alabama, and we had snow a couple weeks ago, which is fairly irregular for us. I think I can count on one hand the number of times in my life we've experienced that. And I think we've got 2 snowplows in the whole state. I'm not being facetious. So that's an impact. But in the Northeast, it also had an impact. It got a lot colder. This week, it's 2 things. We're going to watch retail sales that come out later in the week, and then we've got industrial production. Again, we want to see how the consumer's doing in January with the colder weather, and also how production is doing. Last but not least, we are in the midst of earnings season. We haven't talked a lot about that of late, but just kind of wanted to go over that. 70% of the S&P 500 has reported. We've got about 50 companies that are reporting this week. What we're seeing is very positive. 68% of companies have exceeded analyst expectations on earnings. And then 66% have exceeded on revenue growth. Remember, that's the top line number. If you manage your expenses, you can get the earnings number to look better, but that's a short-term solution that could be a long-term problem. So that's why we like to look at that. We call it the top line number, which is sales or revenue, and the bottom line number, which is earnings. So we're watching that too very carefully, but that looks good from here. So that's kind of what we're looking at for this week.
Good. And to piggyback on Franklin had mentioned the unemployment rate, and we thought we would mention one thing about the unemployment rate on the vlog this morning, a term maybe you have not heard, that's something Franklin, Greg, and I watch carefully in the labor market, and that's what's called the quit rate. Mm-hmm. You know, how often people will actually just leave a job because they are confident that they can move on and go to an even better job. And it doesn't mean having the new job first before you resign. It means that you're confident enough where you can go ahead and leave the job because you're confident that the market is improving to the point where you can do better. Well, it's interesting, the Labor Department started to track the quit rate in 2000. It's a relatively new measure for them, but Janet Yellen and others that focus on the economy, they will look at the unemployment rate, but underneath that, they'll also look at what they call this quit rate. Well, what's interesting about that, the quit rate as a percentage in November, for example, reached 1.8% when about 2.4 million workers resigned because they were confident that they could move to something better in general. That's up from about 1.2% in 2009. The quit rate before 2006 was about 2.1%. Well, why does that matter? When people get more confident that they can move up in a job, the labor market is more dynamic. It's better. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about that, to give you a little bit different figure, the higher rate right now as a percentage of the economy is about 3.3%. So is the quit rate, and the higher rate kind of even off. You kind of want them 1-to-1 equal if you can. That means that you start having a very dynamic movement in the economy. Why is that important? When you look at that, the more confident people feel, the more money they spend, to Franklin's credit, and better markets do. The other thing that Greg Franklin and I had looked at with in the Quit Rate a little bit is it's been very hard for younger people here, particularly over the last 3-4 years, to enter the job market, because when you have a quit rate of like more mid-management like we are, we move up, the next group moves up, and then the young people can come in. It's been very hard for them to enter down here. But it's funny, the higher that quit rate gets, they can move up and the economy expands, which is good.
Right.
So it's good to see that happening, and we'll continue to keep a tab on that. But we thought it might be an interesting dynamic you may not have heard that Janet Yellen and the Fed do watch. So with that, we hope you have a wonderful week. As always, call Greg Franklin and me if you have any questions, or we love, as Greg says, we love hearing your feedback on the vlog. The three of us really enjoy that. We also thank you for forwarding this to your friends. That's happening a lot. We really appreciate that. We hope this is something that helps you, and we look forward to seeing you soon.